So, okay, so I was doing some thinking when it came to uh, our own parents. Everybody's has their own parents. And what we don't seem to take into account is when it comes to having a not so great relationship with our parents, let's say, or you have tried in the past, like you're a grown adult, you've tried in the past to mend things with your parents, but yet everybody just keeps butting heads or something like that. What I don't think a lot of people do take into account the struggles or the terrible things that your parents may have gone through. Now, I'm not saying that's an excuse. That is never an excuse to inflict any sort of pain or chaos or trauma onto your own children just because you've been through it yourself. That is never an excuse to do that. And it's the same with anybody else you meet in your everyday life. Just because you've gone through something doesn't mean you should inflict it on somebody else. It does not give you the right. Anyways, going back to what I was saying, Thanksgiving's coming up, and there's going to be some people that are going to spend time with their family, and there's going to be other people that don't spend time with their family. Those that have chose to separate or distance themselves from certain individuals, there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes you just get frustrated to the point where you can't really see past certain things, or there's barriers there. But what I'm trying to get to is that everybody's human. Everybody's had their experiences, and the problem nowadays is that not a lot of people are discussing those things that they've been through. And the problem with that is it's almost like a generational, I would call it like or some people would call it like a generational curse. It gets passed down. Things that have happened that get swept under the rug or hush-hushed or put in place of a secret or kept in the closet, however you want to put it. The things that aren't discussed, the things that are buried or told to not be discussed, if nothing gets learned, then I do strongly believe that that sort of thing gets passed down. And 2022, there's a new generation, and I stress this, I keep saying this, that if we are not learning from our mistakes, and we are not discussing our past traumas or things that have happened, then it is a good possibility then those things are going to be, just think of sitting around the dinner table, for example. And you look, if you have children of your own, or you've raised other people's children, or you raise your own, and you look at those children and you see the different personalities or things that they have picked up from you yourself or other people that have raised them. They each have different, we'll say them quirks, or, they're all going to have their own specifically. That's who they are. But the ones that they've picked up from other people, such as yourself or other adults, they're going to pick up traits. And you'll be like, oh, I see that, right? I see that. If you look around, oh, that's something that, oh, I do that all the time, right? They definitely picked that up from me. Or, oh, that little bugger, he's being such a little disturber or something like that. But it's definitely my trait or his father's trait, or whatever you want to say, right? Well, kids do pick these things up, and it's not just for traits, and it's not just for habits, but it's also the things that manifest in an adult's world that come out negatively, uh, negative behaviors or something like that, that kids also pick up too. So it's not just the positive, funny things. It's also the negative things too. Those get passed down. So when we're not discussing those sort of things, or we sweep them out, we think, oh, it's no big deal because we can handle it ourselves, right? Per se, some people are like, oh no, I went through my trauma and I dealt with mine the way I dealt with it, and I turned out just fine. Well, that's great. And you are allowed to speak for yourself. There is nothing wrong with that. Nobody should ever speak for you. You have your own voice and you speak for yourself. However, when it comes to certain things that we do not address, there's like this wall that we come up against almost. And sometimes it's very difficult to keep relationships or build relationships with people when one person is open and accepting of the whole idea of healing and speaking about certain traumas and issues, as adults would, reasonably. And there's an understanding there, and it's not so much a judgment, but an understanding, and that things have happened, and there's no need to relive those things or to have them be created in a new cycle with new people or new but the same experience, and a lesson that's not been learned. And we sometimes come up with a wall with certain individuals, and we butt heads because one individual may be open about things and then the other one not so much. And a lot of it, I believe, comes down to the ego. And it's very difficult sometimes for an individual to accept the fact that they too are responsible for their own actions and words and things like that. And sometimes when we do not address certain things that we haven't healed, that those actions and thoughts or opinions or words we say or things we do to other people or how we interact with other people can be negative. And a lot of the time, the whole reason it's negative is because of certain traumas in our past. And if you look into that, you will see the links between the two. And there is no reason to treat another individual shitty. Point blank. But when it comes to families, and it's going to be around Thanksgiving time, there's going to be certain individuals that are going to speak about how, their kids don't talk to them anymore, and, they just don't know what to do, and they're not even going to bother. My mom doesn't speak to me anymore, or something like that. And it's always going to have this sort of dynamic where there's a wall in between family members or two people specifically, or however you want to say it. And usually that wall has been placed there, and it's either both are not willing to discuss or one is not willing to discuss when the other one is. And unfortunately, sometimes this happens, and it takes a lot for an individual that does want to discuss these sort of things to go up against or try to speak with family members that do not want to discuss or that do not want to share or do not want to bring things up. And it's not so much bringing up the past to just hold on to it, but it's to inspect it and take a look at it. That this is something that we can learn from, and it happened, or things happen, and we're going to discuss it. We should be able to discuss it as adults, and we do not want this to happen to the newer generation, and it should never ever be about shame or pointing the finger necessarily. Depending on what it is. Obviously, some people are extreme and things have been carried on that are pretty heinous. That it's hard to excuse, because there is no excuse for that. We're all responsible for our own actions, and some people should be locked up for some of the things they've done, or depending on how severe it is. But when I'm talking in just the general sense, most individuals you'll see on your daily basis when you're out and about, they've all gone through something. And it's too bad that we are so afraid. And I don't speak for other people. I can't even speak for myself, because I'm pretty outright when I talk about things. I don't really hide anything. There's no reason to. And I'm not ashamed of my past or anything that I've gone through. And I understand that it's hard for some individuals to get past that wall. And the ego that is built up, it's almost like it was there as a self-defense mechanism, and some people just cannot or will not get past that point, and it's unfortunate, but I do understand it, and I hope other people understand it as well. When it comes to any of your family members or friends or people that, you're butting heads with, sometimes if you're open to wanting to talk about things, not other people are. And free will is a choice. And we can't fight against free will. And we can't go against other people's free will. And the best we can do is speak for ourselves, and do not ever let anybody silence you, especially when it comes to speaking the truth, okay? Love, 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 love.